Hello, YouTube.
Hi, YouTube.
Jack's not here to yell at you
Well, he shows up and it's a pretty funny cameo.
because he's drunk. If he were sober, though, he'd say like, subscribe, and enjoy.
And comment. Please comment.
Yes. So I guess without Jack tonight, he's at the Garden, right?
He is. He's being Mr. UFC, as well he should be.
Yeah, let him take a night off. Even though this would have been a big night for him as far as takes go, and takes that he's going to try to rub in my face. So
yeah, but you know what
let
that
it
means?
be known, when it came time for me to go to the Piper and get paid or pay the Piper, he didn't show up.
Yeah, but you know what this means, though, because you are correct about tonight. It just means it's delayed until the next episode, which I believe will be Monday, since we're traveling for Lights, Camera, Maction this week. We'll be on the road for the college football show Tuesday and Wednesday. So I would just say tonight, I mean, we're definitely going to have some back and forth about it, but I'd assume that Monday will be Jack's. Like, what's the entrance in wrestling called? Do they have like a specific name for it?
Well, just a big it's a big victory lap for him. Whatever. Season ain't over. We'll see. I'll bend the knee in a minute. I'm not going to bend the knee yet.
Yeah, no, we're going to get to it. But I will tell you, I will make a solemn promise that I will not pretend to be as right about it as Jack has been. I just know that he'll bring it on Monday, I'm sure.
Meanwhile, I got a bone to pick with the one in the middle here.
Who's in the middle?
Well, what I'm looking at is me on the left, you on the right, and then Katie's in the middle of my screen. So that's the one I got a bone to pick later. I'll pick it later. I'll pick it later. I'll pick it later. But I'm going to pick it with you.
Uh-oh. Brace yourself, Katie.
Brace yourself. By the way, yesterday I was at the Barstool Invitational, as was Katie, all day. And my wife was with me because it was our anniversary, and she got to go see a Barstool presentation and all that. And about, I don't know, middle of the last game, Mississippi State game, she looked at me and she goes, Katie does a lot for you, huh? And I said, yeah, she runs my life. So shout out to Katie Snaps.
I will say,
no, go ahead, Katie. Go ahead.
At one point, he texted me if I have any access for a phone charger, and I just had an extra one on me, and I was walking by at the right moment. So I just luckily was able to respond to a text message in 30 seconds, and I looked like the most on top of my shit person ever.
Yeah,
you're much more on top of your shit than you give yourself credit for. But I know that we have a lot to talk about, but speaking of the Barstool Invitational, I watched it at home. The broadcast was awesome. If people are listening to this and they didn't watch any of it, shame on you, because it was actually not just like Barstool loves Barstool, like suck each other's dick thing. Like, it was actually really, really cool. So everybody that was involved should be very proud of it, because it was
one of the most fun things I've done in my 3 years at Barstool. The whole thing was great. The camaraderie was great. The broadcasts were great. Mississippi State won. Like, it was a hell of a night for everybody involved. But this is not a college basketball podcast. We have several of those that have failed over the years. This is a college football podcast.
And a successful one, Brandon. Very successful.
Remarkably successful one. We should talk college football, and let's start right now. Hello and welcome to Unnecessary Roughness, Barstool's college football podcast, brought to you by High Noon Hard Seltzer. Boy, you threw me for a loop right there, Smith. As soon as I said brought to you by High Noon Hard Seltzer, you reached for your drink. I was like, is she about? No, you were just drinking you're just drinking water.
Just a nice glass of ice cold water, Brandon.
you kind of pulled the okie doke on me, but that's okay. Because High Noon is for us. It's for college football fans. It's for the people out there that love to tailgate, love to enjoy college football or pro football or whatever you want to enjoy. Do it with a High Noon in your hand. They have the tailgate pack for those awesome Saturdays in the fall where you're at your campus or in your backyard. They've got that with the cranberry, the pear. They have all the best flavors in the world. High Noon has taken over the world. Like, it's this little podcast started a couple of years ago when High Noon was a neat little new drink. Now it's everywhere in this country. Gigantic drink and well-deserved.
I know that you're going to not know this answer, but I know Katie will. Katie, you know when somebody DMs you on Instagram and like you scroll up and they might have responded to a story of yours from like years ago and only you can see it. Yeah. So somebody DM'd me today and I just was like trying to look and see if we had ever interacted. And one of the things he had responded to was when Roan and I used to do the high noon ads, like early quarantine, when we didn't know how down bad we were going to be. But Devlin would have us where we were like tossing high noons, like quote, through the computer. And back then, now look like if you would have told me then how crazy high noon would have been, like, no, I mean, come on, we're just getting through quarantine here. They're a great sponsor. The drinks are great. How much bigger it is since then is wild. But I will say, making those high noon ads in quarantine, a lot of fun and got me through quarantine. So shout out High Noon for being there for many, many years.
Shout out to High Noon. All right. This is a college football podcast, and on Saturday nights, we react to everything that we saw on Saturday. And this was, we only got 3 of these left. Well, now we got 2 of them left because we're at the end of another one. But I got 3 games pulled out. Then we'll talk about the good. We'll talk about the bad. We'll say who won the weekend, who lost the weekend, and the shit list. And we have to start somewhere that I doubted all season long, somewhere that I believed was fake and phony, somewhere that I believed would be exposed when they go to Austin, Texas. And all of those thoughts were incorrect. I said last Saturday, maybe last Tuesday, when this is a line in the sand game, if TCU goes and beats Texas, which I don't think is going to happen, if they do that, I'm going to have to eat it. I'm going to have to suck it up, and they're going to shove it right in my face. Well, my fat face is right here, and it's been shoved into TCU 17, Texas 10. It is time for me to bend the knee and say, TCU, you own me right now because you're 10-0, and you get the spoils. That's what happened tonight, Casey. They went out and just beat Texas.
I was waiting for the but to come, which I do feel like
there is no but.
Okay. Well, I feel like when you are saying there's a line in the sand, there's going to be a but, like we're going to eventually talk about. So I assume now I know you mentioned Baylor.
No, what I mean, Casey, was last Tuesday, I said, this is a line in the sand game. If they win, I have to just drop all pretense and say they won.
Yes. This is my question for you watching this game. And like I said, I'm not going to dance all over it. Like I know Jack would. Jack's been on TCU long before we were. I don't remember exactly which week it was that I finally decided that I had to stop doubting TCU, but it's been a while ago. And the question that I have for you is on Thursday, when we previewed this game, we talked so much about TCU's defense and Texas defense. And when you looked at the way this game played out today, I mean, Quinn Ewers looked terrible. The offensive line looked terrible. And at the same time, Texas defense was able to get to TCU a lot. When you look at what Max Duggan and this very explosive offense had, they still had a couple of those plays, but it was TCU's defense that kind of stepped up. But was it more to you an indictment on Texas's offense, or was it TCU's defense actually playing really well? Because I'm not taking anything away from TCU, but there is an element of how bad Texas offense looked.
First of all, the Big 12 just makes no sense. It's not a sense making. It's not a sense making conference. Nothing that happens in the Big 12 really is bound by the laws of physics and reality. The Big 12 just exists in its own gravity-free world of football nonsense. So when you see TCU with an explosive offense and a shitty defense, and you see Texas with a great running back, great receiver, great quarterback, and all the talent in the world, and a suspect defense, you think, all right, it's overtime. Let's go. Let's hit that over. Let's get 65, 70 points. And these two teams just looked like they looked like two ugly people in a staring contest most of the night on offense. And that's just it was just not pretty. And now TCU hit the bigger plays, and they had the long run, the 68-yard run. But Duggan was flat out awful. Quinn Ewers was flat out awful. But ultimately for TCU, it's not a beauty pageant. It's not an oil. It's not an art contest. It's a football game, and you just have to win. Wasn't anything pretty or sexy about it. But they go to Austin and they beat Texas, and they did it in ugly, gross fashion. But they've scored so many points this year. You know, this is just a hiccup for them. They'll be fine down the road. I don't even know if it was the defenses so much as just bad, sluggish offense, not up to the spotlight. It was just weird. This is just a weird game that happened, and TCU gets the win. Now, my question is, I think I've done sufficient bending the knee to TCU, who now, or you can legitimately start really thinking, boy, it's hard to make a playoff scenario that doesn't involve them right now.
Yeah, I mean, they clinched the title game. I mean,
I
regardless
was doing this thing that they're going to lose. So why would I put them in my playoff? So I'm going to have to adjust that right now. But we do have to talk for a second. Texas is just not good at all.
It's so weird how like Quinn Ewers. So I don't remember exactly at what point it was. It was well into the game, and they made a big deal about Quinn Ewers had his first completion. And it was just like that alone baffled me. It was like he didn't complete a pass in the first quarter at all. And just like you mentioned, it was a gross game on both sides. But Texas just, I don't know if we just put too much hype around them because of how big of a recruit Quinn Ewers was. And, they talked about it on the broadcast too, about, him, he's technically a true freshman because he did go to Ohio State a year early. So as an age thing, he's there, but it was like they were super hyped. Then they lost a few games. Then they were ranked again. Then they were ranked even higher, and they still look like they suck, but they're also, he's still so young. So I don't know if it's a product of us hyping them up too much in our brains and expecting too much, or if they're just not a good football team.
So I got to figure out, there's several conference division races and races that we're going to have to figure out. And I guess we can really get to them on Monday because Saturday's more of a reactionary show. Right. But we know TCU is going to play for the Big 12 championship.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't mean anything to them really yet because they got to beat Baylor.
Who just got destroyed.
By the way, again, like I said, the Big 12 exists in a universe that makes no sense. Baylor gets beat by Kansas State 31 to 3. Like this, it's just,
what?
Nothing that happens in that league makes any sense whatsoever. And TCU's 9-0. They're 6-0 in the conference. Is that right? Are they
10-0?
Yeah, excuse me. I'm looking at old standings here. But who are they going to be? There's a chance they would face Kansas State again, right? There's a chance they would face. I don't know.
I think that from what it looked like, and I mean, again, we'd have to like dive into it, which it's another thing where I love the fact that the Big 12 doesn't have the divisions. So I think it's more interesting when we talk about it. I think it looks like it'll be Kansas State, barring something crazy. Katie?
Yeah. Kansas State's 5-2 right now. Oklahoma State is 4-3. Texas and Baylor are also 4-3. But
it does look like Kansas State. Anyway, that's going to be interesting because Kansas State is playing better, and Kansas State, could have beat them the first time, but they had some quarterback injuries. Whatever, that's down the road. TCU right now is 10-0, solidly in the playoff discussion, and we move on from there. I think I've done sufficient knee bending here.
I don't think that Jack will accept it. You know what? I will accept it.
Hold on. I don't give a shit about Jack. Jack, I can run circles around Jack in my sleep. I'm not worried about Jack.
And here's the thing with it is that like I've been so wrong on certain things, so I'm not going to dance all over it because that's just not what we do. But I do think that the biggest thing that, and you've already admitted it, so you've done it, so it's fine. It's just that like, last week on Saturday when the playoff conversation came up, it was like you potentially didn't see a clear path for TCU to get to the playoff. There's obviously a clear path there. There's no.
There was always a clear path. They just have to stay undefeated. What I didn't believe was that they could go undefeated. So I didn't think it was clear because I thought they were going to lose. So it didn't matter talking about them. Well, just beat Texas, and now they get a Baylor team who's not exactly throwing the world on
31-3.
What?
Baylor makes no sense.
So we move on from one team and conference that is really solidifying their playoff spot or their aspirations or their hopes or their dreams. We move on to another conference and team that every single year, every single time they get that playoff, that playoff nugget in their hand, every time they get it within their grasp, Oregon just shits down their leg. Every single year. The coaches change, the players change. Oregon's inability to finish a season strong does not. They're at home. They lose to Washington 37-34. Dan Lanning's a new coach. Bo Nix's a new quarterback. But this is classic Oregon football.
And this is something you called because you said Oregon always does this. And my question then was, well, Oregon didn't have Bo Nix or Dan Lanning. What the hell? I mean, and I know that everything in retrospect is easy to question because we're not head coaches and we're sitting on our asses watching them do it. But going for it in that situation that he did at the end of the game, if they would have converted that fourth down, I'm sure it would have been fine.
Let me paint a picture for everybody. In case you didn't watch the game.
Horrible.
Oregon has a 34-27 lead. Let me take it further back.
Yeah,
Oregon leads Washington 31-27 with about 4 minutes left. They've got they just missed on a play at like the 5-yard line, and it's 4th and goal. They settle for a field goal, but on that 3rd and goal, Bo Nix starts to limps heavily, comes off the field. And I think Ty Thompson even comes in for the 3rd and goal and hands off. But they end up going up 34-27. Washington gets the ball back with about 3.5 minutes left, scores immediately. Michael Penix Jr. hits a long pass down the sidelines. Penix Jr., by the way, won't get any Heisman buzz, but he probably deserves it. His numbers have been incredible all year, even when they lose. So it's 34-34. Oregon gets the ball back. Bo Nix is on the sidelines. They go first down, whatever, second down, whatever, third down. They get to 4th and 1 at their own 34-yard line. You've got about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes left. Bo Nix is standing behind Dan Lanning, doing jumping jacks. He's jumping up and down. He's jumping up and down, clearly showing that his leg is fine. Dan Lanning ignores him, the head coach, and says, let's go for it. 4th and 1, 34-yard line. Do not get it. They hand Washington the ball in field goal range. Washington ends up kicking a field goal. Bo Nix comes back for the final drive, gets them about to the 40, 35, something like that. Then a penalty, and they throw a Hail Mary. It's not a Hail Mary. They lose. That going for it for a first-year head coach was gutsy and quite stupid in the end.
Quite stupid, because even if they would have converted, it didn't solidify that anything would have happened. But that deep in your own territory, it was mind-blowing how bad it was.
I like believing in your guys.
But
the only problem there is if Bo Nix isn't on that field in that moment, and he wasn't, then they know you're going to hand it off to the running back. You're not trusting that carry to a freshman quarterback who's thrown like 20 balls this year. You're not trusting him in that moment. So they know if it's 4th and 1 and Bo Nix is standing behind Dan Lanning, they're handing the ball off. And the guy ended up slipping, didn't matter, but I'm not sure that was going anywhere anyway. And it allowed Michael Penix in Washington to just go right down, kick the field goal, win the game. But again, this isn't about Dan Lanning or Bo Nix. It's about a team and a program that every time the brass ring gets close, they fumble it. How do you fix that?
I don't know, because my answer, if you ask that every offseason, would be like, get a new head coach, get a new quarterback, get new guys in there, and change the vibe of the program. But the way, granted, like you said, that play didn't decide the entire game, but obviously I do think it was a microcosm of what happened. And it's just like the Pac-12 in general, it's easy for us to say, whether you say cannibalize themselves or whatever cliche you want to use, but it's just like Washington had no business being in that game with Oregon. From what we've seen with Oregon.
Well, no, wait a minute. I not to disagree with you. Washington's a pretty good team.
I'm saying it, like the way that we've seen Oregon play. I mean, I hand up. I mean, I know if anybody watched the college football show, Dan called me out on, I didn't even put it on the list of games that we should talk about because there was no world that I thought they would lose that game to Washington. And I'm not saying, Washington has played well. Michael Penix has played well, but the way we've seen Oregon play since they lost to Georgia, I didn't think that this could be a thing that happened tonight. I legitimately thought Oregon would continue to win and then it would figure itself out in the Pac-12 championship. And I was clearly wrong about that.
Oregon had 600 yards and lost. Bo Nix wasn't great. He had like 280. But again, Michael Penix, 405 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's been outstanding this year. Listen, we're recording about midnight, right at midnight on Saturday night. UCLA is in a dogfight with Arizona.
Yep.
Like this could be a night that is just going to kill the Pac-12's playoff chances. UCLA and USC are set to meet next week, both as one-loss teams. But if UCLA doesn't get there as a one-loss team, and Utah has 2 losses, and Oregon has 2 losses, all of a sudden the hopes for the conference are on USC to beat UCLA and the Notre Dame in the conference championship game. Like Pac-12 playoff hopes before today, I thought they were phenomenal. Right now, they're not great.
No, and they're still. I mean, the Utah game. I mean, I know they're beating Stanford by 7, and the third quarter just started. But Utah is still sitting there as a team that could potentially spoil things for other teams too. The USC UCLA game loses a lot of luster if UCLA loses tonight, and it's still important because we still have to see somebody go to the Pac-12 championship. But it's. I hate to say, like, it's sad to see, but it is sad to see that as exciting as the Pac-12 has been this year and exciting as the race has been, and it still is, they could have lost out on the playoff, and we're not even going to get to see the excitement of the playoff committee having to make that decision at the end.
All right. Before we talk about Alabama and Ole Miss, Casey, we're going to be on the road this week. We're headed to Toledo and then Northern Illinois, correct?
We are. It's going to be very cold, Brandon.
We are going to need the finest in garments, aren't we, Casey Smith?
We are. And you know what? I think that the people at Roback, the good people at Roback, are going to make sure that we are dressed in not only the finest and the warmest things they have, because they are our official wardrobe sponsor of the College Football Show, but also they are big friends and fans of Unnecessary Roughness. So you guys, you haven't tried it yet. I don't know what you're doing. The quarter zips, the hoodies, the performance joggers, the hats. And as we've said a million times, college football season's coming to an end, Brandon.
Yep.
Which means the holiday season's coming up quick. Roback is a good gift for anybody to wrap under your tree or however you celebrate, because it's the most comfortable shit we've worn in a long time.
Man, woman, boy, girl, whoever it is, Roback has something good for you. They got the quarter zips, they got the hoodies, they got they got everything. They got joggers now. Roback will outfit you in everything for every season, and I love the joggers. I wear them at home. I don't have the confidence to wear joggers of any kind at the office yet, but Roback might be changing that for me. I don't know. I'm a jeans guy. I'm a jeans guy, but I love wearing them at home, and I love wearing them, around, taking my kids to the park and stuff. But listen, I rock the Roback hoodie and everything every single day. So,
Roback.
That's going to be that's my this week's resolution. I'm going to wear my Roback joggers to work one day.
I think that you should, and I think that you would look great in them because everybody looks so great in them. And you know what? If you're listening to this and you want to look great as just like Brandon does, just like everybody does, go to roback.com, use the code ROUGH. You get 20% off your first order. 20% is a lot of money. We know this. Get maybe a gifts for multiple people. Go to roback.com. Code ROUGH, 20% off. And yes, please, Roback, give us nice, warm clothing for this Maction week, because I have a feeling it's going to be cold as fuck.
Tuesday at Toledo looks okay.
What is it?
Wednesday's
okay?
Looking rough.
And here's the thing is that like, I really like the cold weather. If you're saying it's going to be rough, that scares me, because you thought Penn State was really rough.
Well, first of all, Penn State was really rough. Northern Illinois, that's where we're going, right? It's in DeKalb, Illinois, right?
Yeah.
The high on Wednesday,
the
high during the day is going to be 36. That's the high during the day. That's not when we're going to be shooting at like 6 o'clock at night or 5 o'clock at night.
They will have the heaters for us again. I will say that.
All right.
It's actually, you know what?
Roback, I'm counting on you, baby.
I thought it was going to be worse than that. I will take that. You just got to wear a beanie, maybe some gloves. We'll be all right. Roback, it'll be fine.
All right. In the SEC, Alabama 30, Ole Miss 24. I guess the game of the day in the SEC. Jackson Dart's awful.
I still don't understand the eye black. I really don't.
Listen, good looking guy, probably goes out for a dinner date with a beautiful woman every night, probably living a great life. That eye black is stupid.
I don't get it. I don't understand. And like a guy named Jackson Dart at Ole Miss, who is a good looking kid. Yeah, I'm sure he's doing pretty well in that department. I have no doubt. The eye black, though, is just like, the memes, like, he's a 10, but I don't get it.
So the story though is Alabama.
Definitely.
As the SEC go, and we now know what the SEC championship is going to be. It's going to be LSU, who clinched by virtue of this loss to Ole Miss. It's going to be LSU against Georgia. And as the conference gears up for a discussion against other conferences, obviously Georgia, if they go undefeated, they'll get in the playoff. But as the conference gears up for a discussion against other conferences, Alabama staying strong is good for LSU. It's good for Tennessee. So Alabama does in fact stay strong. It looks like they've kind of righted the ship. They're going to be like 10-2, even though this is a bad Alabama team. Yada yada yada. They go on the road and they beat Ole Miss. Who I don't know. Ole Miss is. I just don't know if the SEC West is any good. Yeah,
that's you said it. Like, you think that across the board, outside of two teams which played tonight, the SEC West, they're all just right there with maybe 2 to 3 losses. I think that the bigger thing with Alabama today is, you still saw some penalties that didn't make sense. You still saw them give up some plays on defense that did not look good. But Bryce Young is so fucking good. He's unbelievable. And I know he's probably out of the Heisman race just because of everything else that's going on in the country and coming down to those big moments. He's already got one from last year. But just with him in control of that offense and the 3 touchdowns that he had when they really needed to, when they were down multiple times, he's just unbelievable. And it sucks that this team around him has not been as good as we expected them to be, because I think if they would have been, they could have won the national title this year and he would have repeated, because he's just that fucking good.
Yeah. So this Alabama team has evolved to be the inverse of what they used to be. And what they used to be 10 years ago was an elite defense and elite players at every position with an average quarterback. There were players, there were running backs, receivers, offensive linemen, defensive linemen carrying an average quarterback to a national title. And what we have this year is a Heisman caliber quarterback carrying a bunch of average players to big wins, especially offensively. They just don't have dudes. I don't know where the dudes went. They ain't got dudes. Defensively, they got a couple, but they're not playing up to the level. And Bryce Young just, hey, get on my back, guys. We're going to go win this game. Lane Kiffin's late play calling was interesting. If you watch the game, Ole Miss down 30-24. They give Quinshon Judkins, their incredible freshman running back, they give it to him like 4 times in a row. He, boom, right down the field, gets him in the red zone. They get to the 15-yard line, and he never touches the ball again. He goes Jackson Dart 4 times, and that is a recipe for failure. Lane, once again, can't beat Daddy.
Yeah, which, I mean, not a lot of people can beat Daddy, but when they do, it feels like the changing of the guard. He can't do it. I think, was it you that tweeted that he would beat him at Auburn next year?
He's going to. Yeah, when Judkins and Lane Kiffin are both at Auburn next year, and Lane's going to get so many transfer players. He's going to get, just like he did at Ole Miss, but probably more, because Auburn's a more lucrative and better destination. Lane Kiffin's going to be great at Auburn, and he's going to win a lot of football games, and I frankly wish him well. Noah, still got it in the envelope, buddy? Still got the envelope?
Still got it.
Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah,
good.
He's got it. When Alabama was down 10-0, even with, and I obviously am being your podcast co-host and working closely with you, like, I have a hard time ever rooting for anything Ole Miss. Even though, I bet on Ole Miss to cover today. I think most of us did, which obviously they did. But it's still never, like Ole Miss, the way that they've played, and they've done what they've needed to do other than losing the one game until today. But it never felt like Alabama was out of it because of the way Ole Miss was playing. And then, when it went 17-14, and then Bryce Young just rattled off, multiple series where it was just like, all right, he's still the guy. It just shows that even though Alabama has taken a lot of heat from a lot of people throughout this season, and it's well-deserved, it's definitely well-deserved, they're still able to beat teams regardless of how far they get down because of their quarterback. And I don't know what Nick Saban's going to do next year. I don't know how they rebuild, but without Bryce Young, this team would be really bad. So at least they've got that going for them. Really bad within Alabama standards. I'd like to point that out. Not really bad like Vanderbilt or A&M bad, just bad.
We transition into our good segment. This is where we spotlight everything that is good in college football, all the accomplishments that need to be called out. This is where I pick the bone with Miss Stats. Okay.
Ooh.
Because number one good thing on my list is don't look now, but North Carolina, who was 8-1 and number 15, has to be shown serious respect at this point. Drake May has to be shown serious respect at this point. If you stripped away uniforms, if you took away uniforms and programs and just put the players and their numbers and their accomplishments and what they've done this year right there for all to see, Drake May should win the Heisman. Drake May is the Heisman winner. He has been the best individual player in college football this year. Done, period. He's not going to win it because the front of the jersey matters a lot. So Stroud might win it. Corum might win it. Drake May is not going to win it, but he should win it. And they're 9-1. They're going to play Clemson in a couple of weeks for the ACC championship. And I mean, if they win it, I mean, my God, what a year. But here's where I have a bone to pick with you, Katie Stan.
Uh-oh.
And it's not that you're happy that your team's winning. It's not that you're celebrating because you should. It's that 3 or 4 weeks ago, it was like pulling teeth for me to get you to be excited about this team. I had to grab it out. No, hold on, Katie. I had to grab it out of you. I'd be like, Katie, I'd kill for this. Be excited, be excited, be excited. No, Gene Chizik. Tonight, you're going on Twitter telling us to suck your dick.
Oh.
Okay, and
I didn't know that you told people to suck your dick, Katie.
Told you to suck your dick.
I said respect
me.
Please don't fire me. You all said Wake Forest.
Told
What?
you.
Katie,
Told
wait a
Dan,
minute. Hold on. You told
Casey,
me and
Casey,
you
Casey,
needed to suck your dick. We've been telling you to be excited.
In context.
Casey, this woman right here, Katie Stantz, who is one of my favorite people. My life wouldn't be the same without her.
You're good.
This
Me
woman
neither.
right here, this woman quote tweeted the Barstool Sports College Football Show with me, you, Dan, and Dave, with all 4 of us saying Wake Forest will win, and said, suck my dick. That means she wants
Respectfully,
you to
please
suck
don't
her dick.
fire
That
me.
means she wants Dan, Dave, me, all of us.
Listen, we were all wrong, and we are getting fairly killed by North Carolina fans. I think the Viceroy North Carolina account is going after us pretty hard. Whatever. Katie, Brandon and I have sat, Brandon more so than me, but on Thursday and on Tuesday and all of these old episodes, we were telling you to be excited. Now we're supposed to suck your dick. In fact, in that segment, I said, Katie's like talked me down on this team so much that I feel like I can't pick them today.
I have something flipped today.
You know what? That works for me.
That
All
works
right.
for me.
She's
Listen,
like,
I told you this on and off the microphone, Katie. If my team was where you are right now, I'd be insufferable to everybody. Like I would suck a dick for A&M to be where you are right now. Okay. I would gladly suck your dick.
and that'll be clipped everywhere.
I tweeted this out earlier. It's like, if we beat Wake Forest, we can win the ACC. It happened. Was it pretty? No. Also, how did that not go over? I generally don't know. But like somehow the defense found enough stops to make it not a shootout. Yes, our offense did not look A game, but this was the biggest offense we've faced all year, I think, by a landslide. Maybe save App State at the time, but still like ranked respectable. We found a way to outgun them. It's like we can outgun if we can outgun Wake, we can easily outgun Clemson.
Yeah, well, your defense, I mean, the defense matters too. So
At least on offense.
Okay.
UNC Clemson, it's going to be UNC's offense versus Clemson's defense. Who wins that wins the rest of the game.
I just would like to point out, though, that I didn't see that tweet. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been so nice to you prior to recording about North Carolina.
Yeah, I mean,
It was across the board. I didn't tag anybody.
okay.
That's worse.
Drake May today, 448 yards passing,
So good.
3 touchdowns, ran for 71. He accounted for, if my math is correct, which it probably isn't, 519 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, and he's a freshman. True
That's
freshman.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Pretty.
And it was without our
pretty
top
good.
2 receivers for a decent part of the game, too, because Wake Forest kept on taking them out.
So shout out to 9-1 North Carolina, who on this show last year, I think I said when they were struggling,
Biggest
If you-
disappointment.
if you're not going to win with Sam Howell as your quarterback, you're never going to win because you'll never get a quarterback as good as Sam Howell. I'm almost certain I said that.
I probably said it too. I was very worried about how we would.
Anybody just see me hit myself in the eye with my?
I did. I was going to let you just roll with it.
Well, pop myself right in the eye.
There's so many more people that just listen to this. Like the download numbers of audio are so much higher than the YouTube ones that I was thinking, you know what? I won't point it out to all of the people that are just listening that Brandon just looks like a complete asshole.
I'm wearing a hooded sweatshirt with drawstrings around the hood. I'm wearing a hoodie. It's got strings and just popped myself right in the eye.
Brandon, what would you do for Mississippi State to be 9-1 right now?
Oh, well, legally, I can't say it. Although Katie kind of already tweeted it, I'd suck a bunch of dicks. Okay. All right.
And that'll be clipped out too. You know what? It'll just be giving people that hate Barstool and hate this show and hate us.
Just a bunch of them. Just line them up.
Don't do that. And again, back to my point, if you are one of the people that listen to the podcast, you just missed Brandon. I don't know how to describe that face. He voted hypothetical penises.
All right. More good. LSU just clinched the SEC West.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I still think I read that game pretty right. Like they went to Arkansas and they were sleepy. They did not want to be there. Like they were gross, but they won and they clinched the SEC West. They are the SEC Western Division champions in a year where Alabama was expected to be this big bad mamma jamma, and LSU loses to Florida State. If I gave you on that Sunday, I think they play on that Sunday night, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Sunday night of opening weekend. Sunday, let's say it was Sunday, September 4th, I think. If I said on September 5th, Casey, I'll bet you 10-1. What odds would I have had to give you for you to say LSU might win the West? It would have been substantial, right?
I don't even think 10-1. I think it would have been
1,000-1.
Yeah, I would have or higher odds. I would have had to be there would have been. I mean, I don't know what the option would be of not taking it, but after Florida State, but even after the Tennessee game.
Yeah, true.
Like after the Tennessee game, I would have been like, you're smoking fucking crack.
Yeah. And it wasn't until they beat Ole Miss to sleep where you're like, oh no, wait a minute. You start looking at their schedule and if they could beat Alabama, but they can't beat Alabama. And then they beat Alabama and changes everything. Now they have won the West. Brian Kelly's first year. And I think I feel comfortable in saying this. This is probably going to be Brian Kelly's worst LSU team. I think he's a good enough coach and recruiter and developer that this will be his worst team. And he's looking 10-2 directly in the eye. He's about to play for a shot at going to the playoff. Now, I don't know if this hurts you or not, because Harold Perkins was once going to be an Aggie. He ended up going and decommitting and signing with LSU. Outside of Drake May, maybe a couple other guys. I don't want to downplay anybody, but Drake May, probably the best freshman in the country. But Harold Perkins with LSU right there behind him. This guy is a beast. And he changed. If you watch that game, every time Arkansas dropped back to pass in the second half, Harold Perkins was there to do something.
Yeah, it was definitely, from an Aggie standpoint. I mean, I see it on Twitter and it was people making the jokes because he's number 40 and he looked like Von Miller or whatever. But I mean, I'm sure LSU paid him more money than A&M was going to pay him. So good for him. And that's not a shot. I mean, he needed to go where he needed to go. But did you see the story? And I just read it, so I didn't hear the tone of it. So it's probably lost. But did you see where the Brian Kelly told reporters that he apparently went up to Harold Perkins and was like, oh, you played like MJ? And Harold Perkins allegedly said, who's MJ? I'm not buying that.
You could see a 19-year-old kid not getting the initial, not knowing the initials, not be like immediately Michael Jordan. Yeah, I don't know. What
I just did was the trap that I fell into after Florida State. I definitely fell into in the offseason where I was just rolling my eyes at Brian Kelly off the field.
Yeah.
But you can't knock what he's done. Definitely not. And Harold Perkins Jr. is clearly incredible. But I just, that the Arkansas, and I'm again, it wasn't that I was saying Arkansas had nothing to play for, because of course Arkansas has pride to play for, whatever. But Sam Pittman doesn't even seem like he has pride right now. Like there were multiple times in that game where it's like, what in the fuck are you doing? His press conference afterwards was just like, well, when you lose to the number 10 team in the country or whatever he said. I mean, I know they were higher than that, but still, it's just like, there was just a vibe around this Arkansas team that just didn't scream like they cared that much to beat LSU. The fans definitely do, but LSU had so much more to play for.
I'm worried about my boy, Sam.
Why?
Well, it turns out he's actually not a good coach. He's a shitty coach. And there was a time, I don't know if it's the offseason or maybe last year, where it looked like he had lost a good bit of weight and was looking good. I don't know. My boy's eating.
He eating good.
My boy is eating. He had 2 hoodies on today, and it could have it was like
Also,
he's eating.
It was very cold there. And I know that I know we put it on social media. It was just, and listen, I grew up in Texas. You know how the South, people can't handle snow. People can't handle ice. And it is warranted because we don't see it. The story that Arkansas's ground crew tried to get rid of ice and snow with water was just all time. That was just.
I mean, what do you want me to say here? This isn't the grounds crew at Mensa.
I was shocked when that was an actual report, and I thought maybe I heard it incorrectly. And then of course it goes viral on Twitter. It's like, so you thought in weather that could make snow and ice, putting water on the field would make it better. Yeah. But between that and like Sam Pittman, he did, again, I listen, I'm eating for 2 right now. I'm eating a lot. Sam didn't look great. There was just nothing that screamed like this team is gonna be the one that spoils LSU. It was very close. It was a super sleepy game. There were obviously the quarterback changes too. I mean, and good. You want to talk about something Sam Pittman did well, is going away from Hornsby was exactly what he needed to do. That was a good call.
It's weird because when they had this situation at Mississippi State earlier, they started Fortin and he was awful. And they brought in Hornsby and he was good. Today was the exact opposite. They started Hornsby, he was awful, and then Fortin was okay. I mean,
now obviously he was okay by the end of it, but the fact that he took them all the way down the field and got some points on the board on I believe his first series coming in, that was a big thing too. But this LSU team, they were showing the stats. I mean, other than that Tennessee game, just how much better the offense is getting, how much better the defense has been playing. And so it's you can't knock what they're doing. It's still Brian Kelly. I don't know what it is about him. I can't love him yet, but you got to love this LSU team, especially if you're an LSU fan.
Like, all right.
He's a former UNC guy. He led that game with 92 passing yards.
Yeah, no, it was an ugly game. We probably talked about it more than we ought to. More good. It's a shame nobody's here to expound on this, and I don't. Once I say it, just don't say anything about it because this would be it. UConn beat Liberty 36-33 and went to bowl eligibility. So
Mora.
Yeah, all right. It's a shame. Cool. This would be a good spot to talk about it, but we're just not going to do that.
Okay, good point.
Vanderbilt snapped a 26-game
What's happening?
Just heard a bug.
Ew.
Oh. No, I think it was that Mylar balloon hitting the light. That's what it was. Vanderbilt has snapped a 26-game SEC winning streak. Again, what is that, Norm?
I can't tell if he's doing a bit or not.
No.
I thought it was going to be like, oh, that noise, the Kentucky.
I thought maybe at first, but then you can see the look in his eye.
There's some concern here. I'm not going to lie to you. A little bit of concern. All right. Vanderbilt has snapped a 26-game SEC losing streak. We'll talk about Kentucky in another segment here in a little bit. But Vanderbilt, Clark Lee, good for them. Good for them, Casey.
Good for them,
Good for them.
It's great. They have a better record than another team in the SEC that I hope we don't talk about. But I will say, anytime you can snap that long of a piss poor record, good for them.
Can I say one thing about UConn? One sentence.
No, you cannot. That's the whole gimmick. All right,
UConn
fine.
bowl eligible
That's the
for
whole
Texas
gimmick.
A&M.
What?
UConn got bowl eligible for Texas A&M did.
A&M won't be bowl eligible. Spoiler alert. So
Still before it.
Blake Corum.
good.
162 more yards and a touchdown in a nasty looking game. They won 34-3 over Nebraska. It snowed a little bit. The weather's kind of been a story in the Big Ten the last couple of weeks. Last week it was wind and rain everywhere. Today it was just bitterly cold.
I loved the snow.
Iowa. I kind of told y'all
You did.
24-10, they beat Wisconsin. Iowa's now scored at least 24 points 3 weeks in a row, which that shouldn't be called for celebration, but it is. So,
I mean, if you're an Iowa fan, it's absolutely cause for celebration.
imagine the dorkiest, ugliest, most strikeout on his luck dude, teenager who's never touched a titty in his life. He scores 3 straight weekends. What an incredible time for that kid.
Is this going to save Farron's job? Both of them.
I would assume it saves Daddy Ferentz. Now I don't know if he'll still be able to save the younger Brian. I don't know. Good question. UCF 38, Tulane 31. That was a ranked matchup on the road in New Orleans. Tulane had all the momentum. UCF has just won back-to-back road games, tough road games in that conference. UCF looking really good with Gus Malzahn. Boston College left for dead. Gross, awful. One of the most disappointing teams of the year. They beat NC State. NC State, not a good loss for the ACC because a strong NC State is preferable for them.
Not for me.
Boston College, if you're gonna kick them when they're down, you gotta talk about them when they get up a little bit.
That's another, Brandon. That's another thing that I mean, we already knew the ACC had already probably eaten themselves out of the playoff, but that even further buried it into the ground.
I got to shout out the Auburn Tigers. Auburn fired their coach. They got that dead cat bounce where, they fire their coach and they look like a better team, a different team. They end up beating A&M, which A&M is – I don't have to make you live through it, but Cadillac Williams, it's cold there too. I was watching the end of the game. I have no idea why I was watching the end of that game. But Cadillac Williams took one cooler of Gatorade right to the dome, and he took it. And he shook himself off and he was looking around. He's like, oh my God. And you could tell he was cold. He turned and another one got him. And it was like, oh my God, that's got to be a rush. You got to, if you're a player like Cadillac Williams was, and you played football for years and you played in the pros, and then you get into coaching, that first Gatorade bath as a head coach got to be a hell of a feeling.
I did. So this is years and years ago, but do you remember when Steve Spurrier just up and decided to leave South Carolina and Sean Elliott was the interim coach? Yeah. I did his first Gatorade bath game. I also got doused in it too. And I have a picture. It's one of my favorite pictures from my past career where he is just so happy, drenched in Gatorade. And it's just like that moment of just realizing like, that's you've made it as a coach. I mean, yes, like obviously Sean Elliott didn't become the head coach of South Carolina. Cadillac Williams will not be the head coach of Auburn, but that feeling has to be like, wow, like I've grinded my whole career and now I'm in coaching and I get to feel that, especially at that level. That's a cool feeling. It has to be.
All right. I'm going to go to the bad now. This is the bad list. I'm going to start with the Big Ten West. What is that behind me?
Are you like worried someone's like in your house?
Oh, that was my phone. Oh, I saw my phone on the screen.
You are going through it. You are going through it, sir.
I saw the phone in the screen. I'm like, okay, it's not usually there, and it was moving like this. Okay, that weirded me out. It must be repeated, and I know we do this every week. We do this in the middle of the night. All right.
Definitely.
The Big Ten West, PU stinky. I'm almost to the point where I'd like Congress to step in and just in a couple of weeks, let Ohio State, Michigan just run it back. Let Ohio State, Michigan just play twice. And
I would love that.
You know, in soccer and European soccer, they keep score on the aggregate. You guys might not know this, but I barely know it. And I don't know if it's in Champions League or what. If Jack was here, he'd correct this.
Yeah, about to say he would tell you everything you need to know.
They often have these two game things where they keep scoring the aggregate. Why not just let Ohio State, Michigan do that? Because Big Ten West, 4-3 Illinois, 4-3 Iowa, 4-3 Purdue, 4-3 Minnesota. I'm sure by Monday we'll have an answer. No idea who's going to win this thing.
No clue. And we talked about it a million times. I said it earlier with the Big 12. It just furthers the idea of getting rid of divisions means conferences get so much more exciting. And I would make the argument that the conference that needs it the most out of all the Power Five, even though a couple of them have already done away with it, is the Big Ten. Because Ohio State, Michigan, and the more that I've listened to your take of the Heisman Trophy being decided that game, the more I love it, because I think you're absolutely correct. Like that, going to championship weekend, it's going to be so gross to watch the Big Ten championship. It truly is.
Speaking of more bads, Jeff Nadeau.
What happened?
You didn't see what he did?
That's so dumb.
What did he do?
Casey, it might be one of the biggest moments of self-sabotage I've ever seen in my life. It might be the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
It happened today?
You know what happened tonight, right? In the Garden, Meatball Molly was fighting. Dan and Dave were there.
Yes.
I don't remember the name of the lady she was fighting, but Meatball Molly fought, and Meatball Molly lost. And obviously, Dan and Dave were heavily invested in it. I mean, Meatball Molly is a Barstool employee, one of us, and her winning is good for the company. And I don't think anybody in the company should be rooting against her at all. As soon as she lost, Jeff Nadeau tweets a bet slip where he bet on her opponent to win by stoppage at 3-1 and tweeted it out. He tweeted out his bet where he bet Meatball Molly to get beat. Like he was celebrating Meatball Molly losing. And Dave Portnoy, our boss, tweeted out, "This is one of the dumber things I've ever seen. Every time I get behind this guy, he just chokes it." Almost, he didn't say dead to me, but it was close.
I have it up. Find me a bigger moron than Jeff Nadeau. It's like he wants to live in my doghouse forever. I'm back to being a rider. Fuck Nadeau. He will get zero help from me ever again. Can't be dumber than this idiot. In text.
That's worse than being in like, that's like, I mean, Dave saying fuck anybody publicly like that.
Yeah.
First of all, did Nadeau just not know?
Oh, no. You can look through his page because when he put it out, people were like, this is a bad idea. This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea. He quote tweeted every single one, was like, who cares about, like, what does me being an employee have to do with this? Money is money. Like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Like, it's all quote tweeted, done. White Sox Dave also had a dumb tweet, but nowhere near.
Yeah, I don't think White Sox Dave was anywhere near as
what a moron.
All right. So more bad. Are we sure Brent Venables is the guy at Oklahoma?
I was hoping you were going there.
They're 5-5, and they just lost to West Virginia, who is dying to fire their coach. Just dying to fire their coach. And West Virginia is a dead program right now. Oklahoma might be headed that way. Like, I understand Lincoln Riley took a lot of the shiny toys with him, but the talent that's left behind is a hell of a lot better than 5-5 losing to West Virginia talent. And Brent Venables, if you look at the track record of guys when they leave Dabo, Jeff Scott, fired. Chad Morris, fired. Tony Elliott has kind of tanked Virginia in a year, and now Brent Venables, it ain't looking good.
Do you think it's a bigger question about how Dabo will bring people up through his coaching tree so they grow up just knowing Clemson, and they go up through that tree, and then when they go out, they only have one history in Power 5, and odds are that's Clemson. Like, it speaks to Clemson issue as well as a coaching tree.
The only thing with that is it doesn't really apply to Brent Venables because he did have a very good career before he went to Clemson. He was Oklahoma's defensive coordinator. So, but yeah, on a macro level, that could be true because nobody's succeeding outside of Dabo, and that's something to look at. On Venables, though, he goes to Oklahoma. This is the worst Oklahoma team in a very long time. I don't know, man. Like I understand not being as good as they've been. I understand that. I don't understand being a 500 team losing to West Virginia at all.
No, and especially when you look at the Texas game and they're like, oh, Dylan Gabriel, and we would have been fine. I think that the biggest indication of how bad OU fans feel is when you tweeted that. Of course, there were the morons that were like, oh, you're tweeting this for reaction. Like the very loud group of people that we heard from, that I heard from, that the national media heard from all off season about the Lincoln versus Brent Venables thing. Those people aren't even coming to his defense anymore. That's when you know that like a fan base has already started to turn. And of course, anytime you have a coaching change, things are gonna look different. But you can't lose to West Virginia. You just can't. Do you think he's the guy?
No.
Yeah.
I was pretty uncertain he was the guy at first. I did believe, and this is still possible. I did believe he at least would make them tougher and get them ready for the SEC. That's still possible. We got to give him a one more transfer. We got to give him a transfer portal class, a high school recruiting class to get his guys in there and give them a chance. But even saying that, you still got to be better than 5-5 in your first year with the talent you have. Like you have better than 5-5 talent. Period. That's just a fact. Oklahoma fans can say, "Oh, all of our players transferred." What's left is better than 5-5. I know that for absolute fact. Will Levis.
Go off, King.
His statistics against the mighty Vanderbilt Commodores: 11 for 23, 109 yards, and an interception. I am 43 years old with 4 kids. I can't go to the mailbox without being out of breath. I can't stand up out of my couch without it making a noise. I'm not talking about the couch. I'm talking about my legs, my knees. I feel confident I can go throw for more than 109 yards against Vanderbilt tomorrow. And this is where people get all up in their feelings. They get their ass on their shoulders when Brandon Walker says this, Brandon Walker says this. We beat Mississippi State. I never once said Kentucky had a bad football team. Kentucky has a pretty good football team. I never once said they weren't a good program. They are a good program. The only thing I said repeatedly to Kentucky fans was, you're not going to get where you want to go this year because your quarterback, you're being lied to about how good your quarterback is. He's not that guy. He's just not. Last year, he wasn't that guy. At Penn State, he wasn't that guy. This year, he's not magically that guy. Somebody somewhere who does some NFL draft prep in their spreadsheets, they decided, 6'3", 225, rocket arm, NFL quarterback. It doesn't work like that. You gotta actually be pretty good. You got to make good decisions. You got to make good throws. And Will Levis doesn't have that part. That's all I ever said. And he is doing his best to make sure everybody knows I was dead right. He is an average quarterback, and Kentucky fans still make excuses for him. They say our offensive line's bad. It's weird that your all-SEC running back can run for 200 yards a game behind the offensive line, but they can't block for Will Levis. Is there a disconnect there? Our offensive coordinator's bad. Guess what would make an offensive coordinator and an offensive line look a lot better? A first-round quarterback. You ain't got one. Sorry, you never have one.
Well, it was weird that even I think it was last week, if not the week before, but definitely within the last 2 weeks, he was still getting top draft projections. And it was
he might still be getting it. It's just ridiculous.
Why? But why would that? I mean, I understand that, people have come out of college, no-name guys, or not no-name guys, no-name colleges, and people don't understand it. I mean, we're watching him play in the SEC. What's so confusing about this?
Smith, I'll never know it. I'll never know.
It does not make sense. And I love your pettiness. Like when you tweet stuff like that and then you go respond to everybody that's like, oh, he'll still be a first rounder. He'll still be high up. Like he won't. And if he is, it's crazy.
More bad. Here's a quarterback who might have undergone the biggest transformation from good to bad I've ever seen in my entire life. I've never, and Katie's nodding her head. She knows exactly who I'm talking about. Tell them who I'm talking about, Stats.
JT Daniels?
Oh, my God. Never mind. I'm talking about Brennan Armstrong.
Oh,
of Virginia.
yuck.
we were
Guys,
eating with Jake Malasek when that happened.
I said
never turned off quicker.
I stayed in Philly last night, and I when me and my wife woke up this morning, we walked around downtown Philly, and we had a nice brunch at Fork there. I had steak and eggs. It was wonderful. We saw the Liberty Bell, saw Independence Hall. We ended up getting in the car about 11:45. That means I'm driving back. I missed the first half of the noon games, but I have them on Sirius. That means I'm driving back at about 12 o'clock. So 12 o'clock comes and games kick off. And a lot of times I'll say, if I can't watch, I'll be like, well, I'll look in about 30 minutes and see what happens. But I can't do that. I start looking immediately. I got to say, who scored first? And I pull up the phone and I see Virginia Pitt 14-0. And I look up, I was like, man, they must have started early. There's 14 minutes and 34 seconds left in the first quarter. Brennan Armstrong, who last year was a fringe Heisman candidate, was good. And this year started the Pitt game with two pick sixes. I've never seen a guy go from good to he is abysmal now. And like Virginia is not good. If I hired Tony Elliott and he's an offensive guy and he ruined my quarterback, my good quarterback, I start to wonder if I hired the right guy.
2 pick sixes in less than a minute. You know how impossible that is?
I know Jarek Garantano did it for Tennessee a couple of years ago against Kentucky, but they were like in the middle of the game. These are the first 2 passes of the game.
Just horrible. Because I was watching.
Hold on. You know how hard it has to be to get the opening kickoff and be down 14-0 before 30 seconds go away?
Statistically has to be nearly impossible.
I think it was impossible till today.
Yeah, like he beat the odds. He proved us wrong. He defied science.
Yeah, it's like somebody just made a miracle breakthrough in medical technology or science. Like doctors are sitting there saying, I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he did it.
He is some just absolute found a cure for a disease we thought we could never find. I was watching the LSU Arkansas game, and they do the score updates at the bottom, and Matt Berry comes on and interrupts and tells you what's going on. I thought when I saw the score that they had it wrong. When it said 2 pick sixes, I was like, that can't be right. And then he comes on and explains it. I was just like, wait, what? And I had to go on Twitter to find it because I still didn't. He was saying it to my face. I was hearing with my ears. I was like, there's no way that that's true. They've got the score bug wrong, the clock wrong, whatever. Terrible. And let us not forget, I know Katie just mentioned him. Jake Malasek tried to tell us that he's better than Bryce Young.
His 2 takes were that Virginia was going to start 7-0, and that if you took Virginia's receiving room, picked it up, took Ohio State's receiving room, picked it up, swapped spots, Ohio State would be better for it.
So I'm going to announce this right now. We will be having exit interviews for everybody this year. After the last game, we will hold exit interviews. For everybody that we held preseason interviews, they will have to come back because God knows me and Casey do it. They will have to come back and stare their bad takes. So Travi for the boys, who said this might be the greatest college football team of all time in Tuscaloosa, he's coming back. Unfortunately, Big T gets a chance to come back too, and he gets to dance. But that them's the breaks. More bad. I actually only have one more bad.
I have a few mentions.
Texas is bad. And to the point where I'm like, Sark is am I sure Sark's the guy? Like, I'm gonna be fair and just, and I'm gonna give him one more year, but I don't know. I thought they'd be a little bit further along right now than this. Katie, give me a couple more bad.
The Illinois and Syracuse project, first half of the season. But that's done.
Syracuse looked horrible.
I sniffed out Syracuse. I need a little bit of credit for that.
You did 38-3.
I sniffed Syracuse out. I knew that was phony and fraud. I did fall for Illinois a little bit though. And now they're going backwards. But Illinois is in one of those weird spots, like Kansas. One of those weird spots where they were so down and they jumped up so far real quick. You're like, oh, okay, look at how good they are. The reality is it's going to take a little longer to get there, and they're going to end up like 8-4 or something. 8-4 before the season's a miracle for Illinois.
Yeah,
a fucking miracle.
I feel like Syracuse fans, especially before the Clemson game.
Did you have Syracuse fans in your DMs?
I don't have my DMs open.
Because I talk about a lot of teams. I would say like you'd be shocked at some of the teams I get the most DMs from. Syracuse was like way up there. I had like 15 Syracuse guys in my DMs this year.
Oh, I thought you meant today. I was like, what the fuck were they saying? No, I will say, I still have my Instagram DMs open, which is normally where we get the gold, which, by the way, side note, I did get a request because I was blasting people on my Instagram today that people want you to read once the season slows down. They want you to read. Brandon Walker reads Casey Smith's DMs, the pregnant version, because it is very funny. But beside the point, I did have a lot of Syracuse fans in my mentions throughout the season, but it was more so like, when are you guys going to give us credit? Not necessarily saying we were saying bad shit about them.
All right. Now, anybody got anything bad to add before I'm going to run through the scores here real quick?
So I know it's been a couple nights and they ended up killing them, but why is USC starting so poorly?
USC is just allergic to blowing teams out. Now, they did end up blowing Colorado out, and they had to stretch to cover that game. But I don't know. Like, if you're playing on a Friday night, it's already tough to play on Friday night, and then you're playing Colorado. Like, what? How am I motivating kids to do that?
Yeah, I'm not saying I wouldn't put USC bad. They killed Colorado, and
I'm more worried right now about what's happening at UCLA.
I'm watching. Yeah, I mean, they're still down by 7 and 6 minutes left in the third.
Because we're going to get to the end of this podcast and it's going to be over, but something gigantic not gigantic, but because UCLA, only they have one loss, but they haven't been getting that much respect from the committee anyway. Maybe the committee knew something we did.
What about Wisconsin? Jim Leonard losing today.
Graham Mertz looked terrible.
Wisconsin's a weird situation, man. Weird. They do not want to lose Jim Leonard because he's a great defensive coordinator, but they gave him the taste of the sweet, sweet honey that is the head coaching job. If they hire somebody else, does he stay? That's a situation we got to talk about for another day.
Braylon Allen put out a quote. It was like, I have no interest in transferring as long as Jim Leonard's my coach.
Yeah, that ain't good. Because what that means is if Jim Leonard's not my coach, I have a lot of interest in transferring. So, all right, let's go through the scores, all the scores here that happened in the Power Five. Duke, what happened?
UCLA just had a big play.
Good. Duke 24-7. Mike Elko. We don't talk about him enough. Duke has been a very solid team this season. He's in his first year. Mike Elko, obviously the defense coordinator for A&M a couple years ago, but he's doing one hell of a job for the Duke Blue Devils. Pitt, 37-7 over the aforementioned UVA Cavs. Oh, just gross. Clemson, 31, Louisville, 16. DJ wasn't very good. The offense was okay. Will Shipley had an incredible highlight. Did you see his incredible highlight?
Yes.
Oh, earlier in the year, you were saying Will Shipley's just meh. Do you still stand by that, or you think he's played up to your? Okay,
so you're just a Clemson fan now, right? You're just one of these message board fans that just earlier in the year you said this. Here's the thing.
I'm here to hold people accountable and do memory book on takes.
Will Shipley, I've never said he was. Maybe I did say he was just mad. But my point was, when it comes to Clemson talent, this is not. Will Shipley's just a guy. They've had ETN and Spiller and all these incredible running backs. Now they got Will Shipley, and he just does not measure up. Just like the receivers don't measure up to where they've been before, just like the quarterbacks don't measure up. They don't measure up at running back. And Shipley was he had that highlight. He didn't lead the team in rushing. He didn't lead the team in rushing. I don't know what the guy's name is, Maffa or something or whatever. It came off the bench. Shipley had 90 yards on 19 carries. The guy came off the bench, had 10 carries, 105 yards. So I think he's the best running back on it.
I think it's Phil Maffa, which Phil is just a funny running back name. But that highlight when he hurdled the safety was awesome.
Yeah. Especially compared to the hurdle in Michigan, Nebraska.
Oh, that poor guy.
He's not going to have a family.
That was only a matter of time. I'm shocked that hasn't happened more often.
That just looked so painful. I mean, Katie and I don't know what that kind of pain is like, but Looked
I don't know if
painful.
I remember who it was. Maybe it was RG3 tweeted out. It could have been targeting because he just stuck his head right up his nuts.
Speaking of the random, this just reminded me of this. The play on Jackson Dart, and I can't remember who it was for Alabama that ripped his helmet off.
Yeah.
Granted, he knew exactly what he had done afterwards. Like you could tell all of Alabama's defensive line was like, holy shit, we can't believe it. That was so much worse than some of these targeting plays. Like that could have broken his fucking neck. And it was just like a normal penalty. I was like, this is the problem.
It is.
Is it Dallas Turner?
I don't know how the human body works, because when you see something like that, you're like, that could kill him.
Yeah.
And like, but I've never seen that happen and an actual injury come from it. Like it's weird.
Like and I know that it's like, they say if you tense up in car accidents, like it makes it worse. So if your body is loose, so maybe he didn't expect it. But like Dallas Turner knew immediately how bad it was. And when they slow motioned it, like Jackson Dart's neck, like looked like, in action movies, which are obviously way exaggerated, but when somebody just like breaks your neck in an action movie and it's like, they barely had to do anything. Like there has to be something where it's like, all right, like that was worse than like half these targeting calls.
Miami 35, Georgia Tech 14. The Miami roller coaster continues, but Georgia Tech, they've already changed their coach, but they've been playing better than this shit. Oh yeah, that was a bad pick. Boston College 21, NC State 20, North Carolina number 15 in the country 36, Wake Forest 34. Florida State continues a strong season under Mike Norvell. They're interesting to watch going forward because I think they're 7-4 now. Or whatever they are. They have Florida coming up, and Florida's trending in the right direction too. So Florida State, Florida will have some juice this year to see who goes forward. And Florida also just got that big flip from Miami.
They're 7-3, and they have Louisiana and Florida next.
Yeah, they could be 9-3. That'd be a very good year for Florida State as they continue to try to get back on top of the mountain.
And Jordan Travis has he's had his moments that he hasn't looked great, but he's looked unbelievable for a lot of the year.
Florida State 38, Syracuse 3 in the Big 12. Kansas State 31, Baylor 3, West Virginia 23, Oklahoma 20, Oklahoma State 20, Iowa State 14, Texas Tech 43, Kansas 28, TCU 17, Texas 10, as the Big 12 just continues to never make any sense at all. In the Big 10, we have Purdue going on the road and beating Illinois 31-24 to create that logjam at the top of the Big 10 West. Michigan State survives Rutgers 27-21. Ohio State just goes out and just dispatches Indiana, But listen, this is it's not their fault, but Ohio State and Michigan are just so far ahead of this conference right now, it's laughable.
It is.
Ohio State 56, Indiana 14, Penn State 30, Maryland nothing. Now, Penn State is a team that could very well be headed towards 10-2 with their losses being to Ohio State and Michigan. Nothing to sneeze at.
Nothing to sneeze at. And, as we've mentioned with other schools too, like them playing this way makes Michigan and Ohio State's resumes both look much better.
We have Iowa 24, Wisconsin 10, Michigan 34, Nebraska 3, and Minnesota 31, Northwestern 3, in a game that was probably attended and watched by several. I wasn't among that group.
I was not either.
Yikes. ACC, Big 12.
UCLA scored, by the way.
We go to, so that's 21-21 out there?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We go to the Southeastern Conference. That's where, come in.
Ew, Brandon.
See, we didn't hear any of the other bugs, but we heard that.
Yeah. Also, you could have just
muted,
not reacted, and no one would have said anything.
No, I would have said something.
Oh, you would have? I might not. I
don't know. I guess somebody just knocked on the door or something. LSU 13, Arkansas 10, Tennessee 66, Missouri 24. Tennessee, by the way, Josh Heupel, kind of a dick.
Yes, a dick.
Kind of a dick. 59-24, and we're scoring at the end.
A dick move. I did like Big T's spin on it, though. Did you see his spin?
I don't care.
I kind of bought into it, though.
What was it?
That prior to this game, they were like, oh, Tennessee's going to need to put up like a ton of points. They need to have like offensive crazy explosion to keep padding their resume for the college football playoff committee. And then they go and do it. And then everybody's mad about how classless it was. He was like, well, you can't have it both ways. I was like, you know what? I kind of like that spin zone. They did it for their college football playoff resume.
Vanderbilt 24, Kentucky 21, Alabama 30, Ole Miss 24, Florida 38, South Carolina 6. Beamer starting to show a little the Beamer wagon starting to get kind of a loose wheel over there.
Yeah, little rickety. South Carolina fans are still up in my mentions a lot. I don't know if you get any of them, but they're not quiet people.
No, I think you're the one that gets all the cocks. Georgia 45.
Not the way that you motorboated them earlier.
Georgia 45, Mississippi State 19. And then what?
You had a little bit of a meltdown on Twitter today.
I'll just say the shit list is coming up.
Okay. All right.
Did
Fair
you
enough.
watch?
No, I did not. I watched the score on Twitter and I watched you. I mean, I only have so many screens, and I'll be honest, Georgia, Mississippi
Did you
State
watch,
was-
Katie?
I watched, but I'm also had 4
It was on for like 20 minutes before the other games kicked off.
I
And
know
Auburn-
that the refs won.
You know what? I was gonna go right by my game, but no, since you didn't let me go by my game, I gotta say this. Auburn 13, Texas A&M 10. We'll go through the quarterly breakdown here. Auburn starts off the game with a 7-0 lead. At halftime, they're up 7-0. Then they score and go up 10-0. Texas A&M fights valiantly in the end, but ultimately falls 13-10 to the Auburn Tigers.
You see,
You forgot a big highlight.
In the first quarter, Robbie Ashford with a pass complete to the Texas A&M.
Oh, fuck off. But you did forget it. You forgot a very highlightable number. You know
What?
how many yards A&M's offense had in the third quarter?
No.
-3.
God almighty.
Not great, Bob.
has Iowa's offense gotten better than Texas A&M's?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Gotta laugh through the pain.
Yeah. You know what? It is what it is at this point. Pac-12. Obviously, we have UCLA and Arizona in a 21-21 tie right now, as Arizona looks like they're driving according to my score.
They are. Let's see. It's 4th and 2 at UCLA's 40.
Utah 35-7 over Stanford. They're closing that out. USC 55-17 over Colorado on Friday night. Washington State 28, Arizona State 18. Washington with the aforementioned 37-34 win at Oregon. And Oregon State, you know, we focus so much on the good teams, like the elite teams and the playoff teams of every conference, and we really don't talk enough about everybody else because everybody's playing for something, whether it's pride or hope or whatever. That second line of Pac-12 is really good.
Yeah.
Washington's good. Oregon State's really good. That second line of the Pac-12, and Utah's in that second line.
Arizona just converted a 4th and 3, and they're in the red zone now.
All right. So there you go. Now
There's one you're forgetting. Notre Dame Navy, 35-32. Like skin of the teeth.
I was putting out I felt like they were in control the whole time. I didn't pay much attention to that game. Actually, I just remember waking up this morning and one of my plays was Notre Dame Navy under 40, and for some reason I scratched it out. Now the rest of my card was god awful anyway, it doesn't matter. But I scratched it out, didn't play it, and it went over like in the first minute of the second quarter. All right, so here we go. Casey Smith, who won the weekend?
Very easy answer for me. It would be the TCU Horned Frogs. Everything we mentioned earlier. I feel like every time we do these lists, by the time it gets to me, it's like, well, we've talked about these things. But TCU, you know, despite what anybody thinks of what they will look like when they get to the playoff, assuming that they do go undefeated and win the Big 12 championship, I think that is a different storyline than what they're doing. They're every single game that they need to win, they've done it. They can only win what's on their schedule, only do what's in front of them. I know Texas looked really bad. You know, we mentioned Quinn Ewers did not look good. The offense didn't look good, but still they were able to overcome a very slow offensive game for the most part, other than a few explosive plays. And they're 10-0. They're in control of their own destiny. They deserve to be in the playoff conversation. They deserve to be in the playoff committees for rankings right now. And I think that they shut up a lot of people, not a shot at you. I think that just in general, people that were doubting them, especially against a team like Texas, they were able to quiet that, and they have definitely won the weekend, especially moving forward with the playoff committee conversation.
Katie Stats, who won the weekend?
I highly agree that TCU is number one. To throw another name, I think Vanderbilt and Clark Lee. Like, you had your first SEC win in a very long time. It's like good for them. Good for Clark Lee. It's nice to see.
Yeah, I think. Oh, somebody asked me.
Brandon Walker, who won the weekend?
So it's easy to say TCU because that's the answer. But I'm going to group them in with somebody else. I'm going to group them in with North Carolina. I think TCU and North Carolina are very similar in that nobody really believed in North Carolina. And I make fun of Katie. Nobody out there believed in North Carolina. They were 8-1 and they're number 15. That's a preposterous ranking for a legit 8-1 team from a Power 5 conference. But now they're 9-1 and they just beat Wake Forest on the road. And you look at them, like they're going to be a tough out for Clemson in this conference championship game. They have a legit Heisman winner. Nobody believed in TCU either. At least I didn't, and a whole lot of people out there didn't. I thought they'd go to Texas and superior talent would put them back in their place. None of that happened. So whether you wanted to believe in TCU, whether you want to believe in North Carolina or not, that decision's kind of been taken out of your hands because you are forced to believe in them now that they're winning. They're winning this deep in the season and they're winning games in this big of a spot. Katie Stats, Casey Smith, who lost the weekend?
Another one I think is going to be a popular answer. We've discussed it as well. The Pac-12, the same thing we said with the ACC a few weeks ago when Clemson lost to Notre Dame, or I guess that was probably last week, and all my weekends are running together. The Pac-12 is not completely out of the college football playoff. There are definitely scenarios, but when you look at the fact that TCU did win and does hold that spot as of right now, the way that the Pac-12 looks like it's going to come to fruition, it shows that it's going to be a lot harder for them to get in. Now, every single team does have a conference loss. So we'll see what happens as it unfolds. But the Pac-12, like I said, has been the most interesting conference to watch because they've not had this like glory they've had. And as of late, especially since we've been doing this podcast, it's been fun to watch the race. The race will still be very fun to watch regardless of what happens. But from a bigger picture standpoint, I think that they hurt their playoff chances a lot tonight.
Before I get to Katie Stats, just pull up Dan Katz's Twitter, Big Cat's Twitter. Just pull up Big Cat's Twitter.
Oh, no.
No, I just want you to look at it.
What's happening?
Just
Is it who he's sitting next to?
Yeah. And he took a good selfie with her. How is Halle Berry still that attractive?
Well, because she's a hot woman.
I don't care. How is she still that stunning? This woman's been famous for 30 years.
That's a great photo.
Look at that. Look how she looks like she's 25 years old.
She has fantastic skin. She needs to drop the skincare routine. How old is she?
Again, I think she was married to David Justice for the Braves in like 1991 or 92.
All right, I'm gonna say she's 52. Okay, hold on.
52 is my guess.
All right.
I have it. What is it?
How old is she?
56.
That is a stunning looking woman.
This woman was born in 1966.
Look at that woman.
Her daughter is 22. She looks the same age as her daughter.
That's unbelievable. That is unbelievable.
Good for Dan. Also, by the way, I know Dan's a little bit younger than you, but Halle Berry, like when you guys were young, when from what guys that are 45 to probably 30.
Yeah.
I'm sure she was the subject of a few.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yep. Uh-huh. Okay. So Katie Stats,
crass here.
Who lost the weekend?
I think, Texas as a whole, more specifically Quinn Ewers. We hyped him up so much, whether it's just like a game or two, but it's just been a few games and strings of play, too many looped together. Just like, buddy, we're not saying Tate Martell, but like, where is this hype coming from? Like, is it the coaching staff? What is it? It's time to shut up or nut up or shut up.
Brandon Walker, who lost the weekend?
Apparently Israel Adesanya.
Oh,
he just got knocked out. Anyway, so we have who lost the weekend. I'm going to go a different one because the answer could be the Pac-12, could be Oregon. It is Oregon. It's Oregon. I was going to say Brent Venables, Oklahoma, because I really think he lost the fan base today more so than he had previously. But it's Oregon. How many different coaches, how many different quarterbacks, how many different sets of players have to do this before we realize something's just not – there's something lacking in Oregon's DNA when it comes to these closeout situations. A couple of years ago, they put themselves in position to win a championship or to go to the playoff, and they lose to Arizona State on this random Thursday. Last year, they beat Ohio State on the road, put themselves in position. They go to Stanford, lose to one of the worst teams in the country on the road. Now, this year, they put themselves in position. Now, this is not an embarrassing loss. Washington's a good football team, but you have Bo Nix, Heisman. You have all this stuff. People finally started believing in you after that 49-3 win loss to Georgia. And you show up and you do this, and you just continue that Oregon DNA of always losing when you've got everything to lose. And that's Oregon football.
Yep.
All right. Now, shit list. Casey Smith.
I'm going to be honest, Brandon. I know you've probably got a really good one coming. I'm not even going to rant. I'm putting A&M on the shit list for every single reason. I'm putting Jimbo Fisher on the shit list. And if we don't fucking hire an offensive coordinator in the offseason, I'm going to drink bleach.
Okay. No, you're not. Katie Stats.
I don't really have a shit list, so I'm going to do preemptive Clemson fan base for what's going to come in the next few weeks.
Brandon Walker, who's on your shit list? I know this is about to be good. I'm getting ready. I wish I had some popcorn.
I understand the reality of college football. I understand the haves and the have-nots of college football. I understand teams like Georgia and Alabama are the best teams year in, year out in college football. And I understand this year, Georgia's the best team in college football. So when you have the best team, you presumably don't need help. You don't need help.
Oh, hello, Jack.
No, I'm not going to say anything about TCU. I drank a lot of double tequilas, but I'm gonna let you guys. I know you guys in the middle of a podcast.
Anything to say, UConn?
UConn, we took down Liberty for you, Brandon. Izzy got knocked. I'm just
All right, real quick. You have 30 seconds. I bent the knee to TCU. You can gloat.
No. We came together today to beat Hugh Freeze. That's all we did today. I don't want to gloat anything about TCU.
Brandon, let the man enjoy his drunk.
Why are you moving so much?
He's drunk.
Because I just walked over from MSG. Israel Adesanya got knocked out in the 5th round. I mean, what was he doing, bro? All right, guys. You finished the podcast. I appreciate you.
He's walking by.
I love drunk Jack. That was cute.
Where were you, Brandon? Shit list.
Yeah, you got to
We'll continue that on Monday. 100%.
What's Brandon doing?
I'm trying to decide if I want to put him on the shit list. Motherfucker shows up drunk, rocking back and forth. Is he?
I knew I could see it in his eyeballs, but I knew when his hair kept falling in his face, he was struggling so hard to get it back. And girls know that that's a problem if you have long hair.
All right.
3 for 4 in this podcast for showing up drunk. So Brandon, you're next. And sorry, for 5. Noah, you got
listen. I have a promise to make, and I think I can keep it. I will never appear drunk on this podcast. I don't have the nerves required. I would be terrified to have more than half a drink before a show. I just can't do it.
Mississippi State wins the national championship. You're gonna go celebrate.
I'll just be happy. I'll just be happy. Like I didn't have a drink the night they won the baseball. Like
I can make you a solemn promise.
What?
I will not be showing up this season drunk on a podcast.
Thank you very much. Can you set me up again, please?
Yes. Okay. Brandon Walker. Pretend that Jack McGuire did not just walk in and show us his drunk self.
Yeah.
Who is on your shit list?
I know the realities of college football. I know Georgia's the best team in the country. I know they have more talent than everybody. And I knew going into this game tonight that Mississippi State was going to get beat and get beat pretty solidly. I thought maybe we'd cover the spread, and I thought maybe we'd make a good accounting of ourselves. And there were times when that was the case. However, it just was never going to be allowed to happen. And even Georgia fans are embarrassed at a little bit of the help that they got. They're the best team in the country. They don't need help. I can handle losing to the best team in the country. Just let it happen the way it's going to happen. And this is more across the board for SEC officials. I've said it many times. The SEC has the best fans in the world. They have the best tailgating in the world, the best stadium atmosphere in the world, the best players in college football, the best coaches in college football, and the god-awful dog shit worst officiating in sports. It's embarrassing. Now, is this sour grapes? Some of you will listen and say it is. All I'm saying is, and yeah, there are some. All I'm saying is there were 3 game-changing calls, all went in the favor of the number 1 team in the country tonight early in that game. Stetson Bennett dropped back on a 3rd down and threw the ball away and was called for intentional grounding, but they picked it up because he got out of the tackle box. He was standing on the A and the Mississippi State logo in the middle of the fucking field. He didn't get outside the tackle box. He didn't get outside the center box. Okay. Then Mississippi State forces a fumble, and they did this thing that they did to Tennessee last year where they said forward progress will stop. It was not. The progress of the ball changed to the other team. And then there were just god-awful calls night in or day in, day out, or play in, play out almost. Drive in, drive out. There we go. There were god-awful calls all night. I know my place in college football as a Mississippi State fan, and it ain't great. However, just give teams chances. Let teams figure it out on the field. And the SEC cannot do that because they're officiating. I don't think it's corrupt. I just think they're fucking stupid. They're awful and stupid. And even Georgia fans are DMing me saying, I like beating you, but I didn't like beating you that way. They're being nice. They're trying to suck my dick. Fine. SEC officiating is on the shit list. I hate them. I hate them. Greg Sankey can suck my dick.
Yeah, I mean, I
You didn't watch it, but I'm telling you it was bad.
No, I didn't watch it, but I do trust you when you have said meltdowns on Twitter. When you're talking about Greg Sankey and the SEC officiating, I believe you 100% because I've watched enough games with you over the years to know you don't exaggerate your hate for them unless it's warranted.
All
Where
right.
does this compare to your hate for the Memphis officiating?
I got a bombshell for you, Katie Stats. It was the same goddamn crew.
Shut up.
It was the same fucking crew.
Damn.
Board?
So when I say Georgia's the new Alabama, Georgia's the new Alabama because they're getting help they don't need. Kirby don't need your help, officials. They don't want your help. Get out of the fucking way. Let them beat us the right way. It was trash tonight. All right.
That's perspective.
All right. So here we go. I guess that's about it. We have 2 of these Saturdays left. And this week we'll be coming to you Monday night again because me and Casey and Katie are all getting on a plane and headed to Maction. We'll be in Toledo Tuesday night and Northern Illinois Wednesday night. And then we'll go from there. So that is anything else?
Nope.
No.
That's Katie. That's Casey. That's me. That's unnecessary roughness.